In the following tutorial, we're going to create the code for our movie here, where we stop and play each of the animations with the stop and play buttons here, as well as stop them initially. So the very first thing that we need to do is create a new layer, and this is going to be our actions layer. So let's name it that. And then the next thing we're going to do is lock that layer. The reason we lock that layer is so that we can't add anything visual to that layer. We can always insert keyframes and actually add code to that layer, but it does disable anything visual from going on that layer, which is kind of important. The next thing that we need to do is locate our actions panel. So you can hit F9 or bring it in from the right hand screen, or you can keep it over there. I have to kind of move mine around. Now you'll notice that I'll go between different looks sometimes. If I double click on the actions frame, it'll keep a wide bar here. If I click on the bar above, it'll make them look a little bit different. So this is all the same panel, it's just different ways of looking at it. So it can be a little bit confusing. Now one of the things I want to point out is that you want your actions on your main or on your top timeline pretty much every single time. If you click on any other object, you'll notice that I can't apply actions to it at all. Now I can find out what the name of that object is, possibly in the properties over on the right, but I'd really like it to keep the actions script that I'm working on in this actions layer. So there's a really nice feature. If you go back to the actions layer and then click on this pin active script, that particular script will stay there so that any time that I click on any other object, I can still find the name of that object possibly over in my properties, which right now it doesn't have a name. This one does. It has anim2 because I've been playing with it already. But you'll find that it still doesn't take me off of that particular layer, which is really, really nice. Anyway, I'm going to create my first comment, and this first comment is to stop all timelines. Stop timelines. And you'll see that the A appears on that actions layer. Now in order to stop the main timeline, it's pretty easy. All we have to do is put the keyword stop. Now we might want to be a little bit more specific about what we're targeting. But I don't know if you remember, but for all actions there are three different things. It's EAT, which is events, actions, and targets. So I'm just typing that out so you can see it. You can also call it T, but it's pretty much in the events, actions, targets is the order I want you to remember it, because even something like stop has these three. The event is coming into the coming into the frame where that code is. The action is, of course, to stop the timeline, and the target is the timeline that we're specifying. Since we're not really specifying anything here, it's automatically scoped. But we can put a better keyword here to help us scope the timeline that we're on a little bit better, or let's say more exactly. And that keyword is this. So this dot stop will stop the main timeline that the code is currently on, because this is pointing to the timeline we're on. So that's something you'll see quite often. Now, in order to stop the next timeline, we do have to have an instance name for it. So I've already given mine an instance name called anim2_mc for movie clip. And so if I go back to my actions frame, one of the reasons that I've had you put in the this is that if you ever use the insert target path, you'll notice that it already has this in here. If I find the next anim, that's anim2_mc, you'll see it says this.anim2_mc. And if I click on it, that's what it'll put down. Then I can say .stop. Now I'd like you to continue this for the other two timelines as well, so you do need to give them instance names in order to stop them. And we're going to go on with the code for the main timeline. So I'm going to do another comment. This would be the timeline controls. And if you remember from before, we always have functions and event listener pairs. So my first function that I'm going to write is going to be the stop main. And this is going to have an event that's a mouse event. And then we can put the :void. And then we need our beginning curly bracket and ending curly bracket. And then we go up one line, and this is going to do this dot stop. So it's exactly what we have before. Now we need a function that will be the function to play the main timeline. That'll be function play main, and it will look pretty much the same. So why don't I just copy the rest of this and paste it. Event colon mouse event colon void this dot play. Now we need the event listeners for these, and so let's find out what the name of our buttons are. We have anim1 stop button, and then we have the anim1 play button. So both of those will work just fine. So I'll copy one of the names and paste it, and now I can do the add event listener, and this will be a mouse event mouse event dot click, and this will run the stop main function, and it has semicolon at the end, and then I can copy that line and just change the things that need to from stop to play. And we have created our two functions and then our two event listeners for our main timeline. And we should go ahead and check our syntax to make sure that there are no errors. And then take a look at it one more quick time just to make sure everything matches up. For our function stop main, we have stop main down here. That is going to use the anim1 stop button. We do have a mouse event that is passed to the function, so it says event mouse event, and the void is not really needed, but it's good common practice to put on there. And then for the other one, we have our play main, and that equals the same function name down here. We have anim1 play button, and oops, look at the one place that we do have an error. This dot play needs to be lowercase. So you do have to really make sure that all of your errors are taken care of. So let's go ahead and test this out and see if it works. So we can now play and stop. Well, here's one problem that I did notice, and I've troubleshooted this before. You'll notice that it's not allowing me to replay this thing as a cycle. And the reason why is because when it gets to frame 30 and it repeats back to frame 1, it runs this code again. So at frame 30, I'm going to insert a keyframe. Let's go back to our frames layer, and you'll notice, well, wait a second, it's still on the same actions layer that it's always been on. If you notice down here, it says actions 30, that's frame 30. So I can click on that and be able to change the code in this particular keyframe right now. And this is going to have this dot go to and play frame 2. And what this does is go back to frame 2 and continue to play, skipping the code at frame 1. So let's try it out. We'll hit play, and you'll see it'll just keep on repeating. And now we need to do the same thing with our second one. So it's really easy to make our next one work. We just take the code and copy what we have, and this will be the anim2 timeline controls. So we'll just change anim2. Everything that said main will change to anim2, play anim2. So that will be stop anim2, play anim2. And we need to change this dot stop to this dot anim2 underscore mc dot stop. So we'll change those to anim2 underscore mc. And then we, of course, have anim2 stop button and anim2 play button. So it's fairly easy, but you'll notice that we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different places that we had to make sure that we were changing the information in order to get the anim2 timeline controls to work. Now, that seems like a lot of work, and we'll be discussing another way to do that in the future to make it so that you have much fewer places where you have to change things. So anyway, let's go ahead and save our work and test it to make sure that everything's working. So we can do play and stop, play and stop. And of course, I would like you to use the same exact method to stop and play the last two animations, and then you'll be done. Thanks.